So we're at Emerce eDay talking to Andy Polaine of Fjord. What will you be talking about today?
So my talk's about creativity in the age of synthetic realities, and that's really about, there's all these new tools. Most people know synthetic media from things like deep fakes, where people kind of swap the face of one to the other, and there's a lot of AI generated imagery in media, and it's generating people and environments that look just like real things. And most of this stuff has been in the sort of research labs and in research papers, and it's just starting to emerge into sort of creative tools. And I think we're at a kind of Photoshop 1 moment of creative tools, so that's really what I'm going to be talking about and where that might go.
And how can this be used in real life? Because you're saying this has been in research labs, but can you give an example?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest areas is using it to create synthetic people. So pictures of people's faces who had never existed, or in fashion in particular, so fashion and marketing. And there's a company called DataGrid who are a startup in Kyoto in Japan, and they make head-to-toe, or they render head-to-toe synthetic people, right? So they look like humans, and they've got all different poses, can change all the kind of gender and race characteristics of it, plus all the clothes. So you can see for kind of like, it'll be very hard for brands to resist the idea that they can just generate a load of media for their digital channels, possibly really personalize those, so localize them to different ethnic markets and so forth, and countries. And there's some sort of flip sides of that as well.
Does that mean that you don't need real people anymore in marketing campaigns?
So that means you probably, for some things, you probably won't need real people anymore. I mean, Dove recently used they had this thing called #RealMums campaign, and they kind of used it as a political commentary where they fed a load of imagery of what is supposed to be the sort of perfect mum, and trained an AI on that. Again, it's called a generative adversarial network. And then they generated this woman's face who was therefore supposed to be the kind of the sort of average, sort of perfect average middle. And the whole campaign was, is there such a thing as a perfect mum and stuff? Yeah, but you'll see it, I think, more. So.
And what do you see as the main pros and cons of this trend?
Well, one of the pros is that it's just a continuation of something that's been going on for a very long time. I said it was like the Photoshop 1 moment. Photoshop changed everything, and now we think of Photoshop we talk about it as a verb or an adjective. We say, oh, that's a Photoshopped image, or designers are very used to hearing, can't you just Photoshop that? Right? So it becomes very quickly accepted in culture. And if you think about the sort of how quickly smartphones became accepted in our culture, and we now have all of those kind of filters and stuff on our smartphones and don't really kind of think about it. So whether it's a pro or a con, it's probably both, but that stuff I think will make its way into popular culture and be accepted very quickly. The con of it is that it starts to become quite hard to tell what is synthetic and what isn't. Now I would argue from a sort of media sort of theory perspective that's been the case for decades. And if you look at how kind of manufactured celebrity and influencer culture is, it kind of arguably doesn't make any difference. There is a lot of worry about it in terms of news media and not being able to tell whether that was really President Trump or whoever else saying something or not.
So potentially could be a drive for fake news, but that exists already.
It could be, but as we've seen, you don't need a lot of sophisticated technology for that, right? You need storytelling. So, when they slowed down the Nancy Pelosi video and kind of put that out there and said, oh, what's wrong with Nancy? She's the Speaker of the House. It was just a slowed down video. And then more recently, Trump just used a Sharpie to kind of alter a weather map. And so, the fake news thing has really got less to do with technology. What it does allow is for that to be much more pervasive and generated kind of much more quickly and possibly anonymously as well.
We're curious to listen to your talk, but I also would like to learn a little bit more about your podcast, The Power of 10, and your newsletter, Doctor's Note. Yeah. Why do you do it, and what is it about?
That's a sort of side hustle, as they say. So it's not really it's partly part of my job at Fjord, which is to kind of think about this stuff and thought leadership. But I actually missed writing, so I started the newsletter because there was some stuff I wanted to sort of write long form about and write about. And although I do have a blog, I kind of newsletters have sort of become the new blogging, as has podcasting actually. And the podcast it's named after, there's a very famous Ray and Charles Eames film called Powers of 10, where they show the relative size of things in the universe based on the power of 10. So they start with a camera 1 meter above someone lying on a kind of picnic blanket, and then they zoom out 10 meters, and then 100 meters, and 1,000. Very, very quickly you get into the the solar system and the universe, and then they go back in the other way to the subatomic level. And it's this kind of different zoom levels is a way I've often described where design operates, because design operates at so many different levels. You've got detailed little feature, then you've got a kind of application or a sort of platform ecosystem, and then it goes all the way up to the design of public services and so forth in society. So part of our job, and particularly in the kind of design we do, is very fluidly moving between those levels and trying to kind of work out how does the detail affect the big picture, and if we change the big picture, that might be the business proposition or whatever, how does that have to kind of ripple across all the detail? And I wanted to kind of talk to people who weren't necessarily in design, because I think designers can end up in a bit of a bubble talking to other designers.
You want to make design accessible for the masses or for non-designers?
Well, almost the other way around. So what I want to do is make some other stuff accessible to designers. I think there are kind of people who have lots of interesting things to say, and they come from places like NASA, or they come from fields of ethnography or completely different kind of fields. And I think it's really important that designers hear about that stuff. And I try and read pretty widely because I think that's the way of kind of seeing the connections between things.
Excellent. Maybe my last question, what do you hope is the one takeaway that people get out of your talk?
Oh, that the creative industries are about to massively change, and that we are slightly kind of asleep about that at the moment.
Thank you very much, Andy, for your time.
Thanks very much.